Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. In today's video, I want to have a look at altcoins again. Now I know you're probably sick and tired of, seeing me cover altcoins, but I am going to sort of change it up a bit. I just want to cover a sort of broad area of metrics and, whether I'm covering ETH, BTC, a specific altcoin or a group of altcoins. I just want to see what people like to see, what people find useful. And even though I might be interested in a topic, it might not be interesting or useful to many people. So, I know what to sort of not do as much of. Maybe keep to a monthly video instead of a weekly. Anyway, in today's video, I'm going to have a look at a nice way of looking at altcoins, really. Or not a nice, a simple way of looking at altcoins. It just basically shows how much of the altcoin you could buy with one Bitcoin at a specific time, So it just shows how the altcoin has held to Bitcoin. And I want to start off with Litecoin as well, because my friend Jason in the comments has been talking to me a bit, and I know he's a big fan of Litecoin. So I want to start with Litecoin just so that, he can watch the start of this video and get most of the information that he needs, so he doesn't have to watch the rest. But if you do want to watch the rest, it could be useful to see how the others hold up, just to see how well Litecoin has done in comparison. And spoiler alert, it's done pretty well. By pretty, I mean very well, to be honest with you, for current price. And of course, with this metric, the higher the chart goes, the worse or the more value the altcoin has lost to Bitcoin. So here, when we see Litecoin's peak of 580 or so, this means that Litecoin has lost the most value compared to Bitcoin at this time. So I could buy 580 Litecoins with one Bitcoin in June 2022, but down here I could only buy 200 Litecoins with one Bitcoin, with that same Bitcoin. If I hadn't have bought Litecoins here, I still had one Bitcoin. I waited till December 2022, January 2023, and then I decided to spend that Bitcoin on Litecoin. I would only be able to get 200 or so, 250, compared to 580. So as we can see, getting into it, Litecoin is it's at a good spot right now. It's sort of in not a middle ground. Well, it's sort of in a middle ground from the general highs to the general lows. We can see that we spend a bit of time down here, spent a bit of time up here, and it's sort of floating in the middle, excluding sort of wicks. It's low that was put in, not this down here, back in 2021, when Litecoin became most valuable to Bitcoin. We can see that it reached a low of 1.39 or 1.35, I think is the actual number, I'm not quite sure. 1.38, or is it 1.36 or so? Okay, 1.38 anyway, is its low, and the current price, of course, is 320. So you're doing quite well. Sorry, you're not doing that bad, to be honest with you. We'll see with other altcoins later on that a lot of them are a lot worse compared to Litecoin. And a good way of measuring this is just taking the current price on its Bitcoin pair, 320, and dividing it by its cycle low. I'm not going to include down here. I'm looking from 2020 peak onwards. So we're looking at the peak of Litecoin, which was 138. If we divide 320 by 138, we roughly get around a 2.3x or 2.3, which means that we get 2.3, which roughly means that you've lost 2.3 times the value of your Litecoin compared to what it was at its peak on Bitcoin. So if you'd have sold your Litecoin for Bitcoin here, and then you decided to buy your Litecoin back, you'd be at a 2.3, more value if you'd have held Bitcoin during this time. However, if you'd have held Litecoin during this time, you'd be 2.3, you would have lost 2.3 times your value. So just remember, Litecoin, you want the lower the better for this. Basically, the lower the number, the better. Litecoin is 2.3. And one more thing I want to look at before we move on is that we see here Litecoin 2021 in May puts in its most valuable price compared to Bitcoin. If we have a look at Litecoin 2021 in May, it puts in its USD high. So they correlate. They're inverse correlations, which is literally 1 over the asset. I know it's Litecoin BTC here, and this one is Litecoin USD, but Bitcoin is always dead useful for sort of figuring out how your portfolio is doing, especially during bad times, like a bear market. If you're looking at your portfolio just in USD, you're going to get depressed because all you're going to see is red. The whole crypto space is going to go down over the course of the 2 years, and they have. I mean, if you look at Litecoin from its peak, if you bought anywhere, like literally anywhere within these realms, which is quite possible, this is when most of the hype was around and it was up for long enough, months, you've only seen red for basically a year and a half, basically. And Litecoin has done pretty well, as we found out. So if you put something in like Avalanche or Cardano or Solana, you're probably looking at even more red. But anyway, we see that they give the same data even on its Bitcoin pair. Peaked 2021, and then if we look at our high here when Litecoin was its least valuable compared to Bitcoin, 580 back in June of 2022. If we zoom into June of 2022, we see that Litecoin puts in a low on its USD value, on its USD pair, sorry. So they paint a similar pattern, like they tell a similar story. When Litecoin is low on its USD pair, it's extremely undervalued on its Bitcoin pair. And then when Litecoin is putting in USD tops and highs, it's extremely valuable on its Bitcoin pair. So it's a useful metric to look at. I always find it useful. It just makes things easier for me to visualize and count in my brain, So just remember, currently 2.3 times the value. You could have had 2.3 times more the Litecoin compared to, if you had 1 Bitcoin here and you didn't spend it and you bought here, basically. 2.3, lower the better. Now, next one, I want to have a look at ETH. So if this would, ETH, BTC, and we'll change this to ETH USD as well. So first of all, okay, I put in a line here. This is just from me doing my own stuff. We're in a sort of steady uptrend here, as you can tell. Now Ethereum from its low, which I think is here, Yeah, that's technically its low. That is December of 2021, which makes sense. That's when it peaked on its USD, I'm pretty sure. We can check 2021, December. Yeah, December, November time, sort of putting its peaks. As you can see, it actually puts in its low here, December 9th. And it's actually a bit earlier on its USD pair. So we can see when Ethereum is putting in its lows on the USD, we know that it will suffer compared to Bitcoin in the very near future. So, So Ethereum was here when it sort of bottomed, but on its Bitcoin pair, it took another week or two for that to kick in to show. And then again, one sort of recovery and back down again. We get that same recovery and back up again, because this is bullish for ETH here. You see, it's obviously the lower the price, the better. It's more expensive compared to Bitcoin. Puts in its high, climbs back, loses value on USD, puts in another high, It's a good metric to have, and I always like to look at how back in the day, if you'd have timed it perfectly, which not many people could, of course, you know, you could have got 632 Ethereum for one Bitcoin. You know, like sorry, off topic, I know. I have to look at it. If you got in Ethereum really early, say you got it for a $5, okay, 5 USD, and you put in 50 USD, you know, nothing. Like it was a altcoin, we'll see what happens to it. And then you forgot your wallet existed and you only came back to it. Even if you only came back to it now, you know, not only would you be looking at a 10x, like a 15x or something stupid like that on your money, not selling at peak. You could have swapped that. You could have swapped the 10 Ethereum that you had now for, you know, like 2/3 of a Bitcoin. And if you did it at peak time, you could have sold it for a Bitcoin. You could have sold your 50 quid of Ethereum for one Bitcoin. Anyway, I'm going off topic a bit. We can see here our peaks line up pretty perfectly. Sorry, that's our peak. And then of course, if we go to our low, our cycle low, which is June 2022. If we go to June 2022, we can see that, you know, it puts in its highs, and it actually puts it in. Is that roughly the same time, or is that early? June 18 is when it sort of is at its peak, and this is actually June 11th. So this showed early when ETH would be putting in a new low, which is pretty cool. You know, it gives you a little head start. So it's something useful to look at. You know, like if you see that an altcoin is losing value greatly to Bitcoin pretty quickly, you can assume that it's going to be the same on its USD pair. And again, back to here, we can see that it's been in a slow uptrend. Now, if we take our low from December and take our current price of 16, we put 16 over 11, or 16.2 over 11.2, we get out 1.44 times. So, you know, if you were to buy lower than Litecoin, if you were to have a Bitcoin here and buy ETH with it, you would be missing out on a potential of 1.44 times the value you could have got if you saved that Bitcoin and bought your Ethereum here instead at today's price. So better than Litecoin, but to be fair, Ethereum is sort of it's sort of taken the, you know, big dog Ethereum. It often holds up, and I say often like we've had loads of market cycles with Ethereum, but it's sort of cemented itself as a sort of stable blue chip cryptocurrency up there with Bitcoin for a lot of cases. And on its Bitcoin pair, you can see it hasn't really you know, lost too much value. Now, of course, it has lost value, you know. It's a 37% increase, which is still, you know, quite big. You know, you could have, if you just held Bitcoin, you'd be, again, you'd have more money, but I don't want to be constantly saying that, even though it makes sense, because I feel soon we're going to see altcoins start to recover a bit. I think we'll have one more bounce on this Ethereum sort of support line, and then I think after that we'll break below it. I think we've got only 2 to 4 months left of this sort of Bitcoin dominance, where we see Bitcoin leading the charge. Anyway, next altcoin. Remember, so far Ethereum 1.44, Litecoin was 2.33. Yeah, I think 2.33. So our next coin will be ADA. Now, I quite like ADA, to be honest with you, but we'll see now that it might be a bit of unconditional love, because it's not showing it back, definitely not on its USD pair anyway. And we can see that currently, you know, it's at its FTX lows, basically, like just, you know, we had a really bad week or two here, and we haven't recovered since. I think there's more pain for alts. And if we have a look at our Bitcoin ADA view, we can see that obviously, you know, for the last almost 2 years, to be honest with you, ADA's just been losing value to BTC, like literally. I mean, you know, you put in your most expensive or your most valuable ADA BTC at 1,600 or 16,121 ADA for one BTC. You know, you're making good money there. That's great if you traded your ADA for BTC here. But if you held ADA from sort of the peaks here, which coincide with ADA's USD peaks, I think, September 21, September 21, you'd be in a lot of pain basically if you held from here. And if we just check, $550%, you know, a 5.5x roughly. But that's technically, if we take 105 000 and put it over our low of 1600, whatever, 15900, you're actually getting a 6.6 times the value loss to BTC. So if you'd have moved your ADA to Bitcoin here and held, and then moved back to ADA today at this second, you would have you would have 6.6 times the ADA than you would have back here. You know, you would have jumped from 1600 to, you know, 100k ADA, which is mad to think about. You know, these altcoins have really struggled on their pairs. You know, like we saw here, that coincided with our peak. If we have a look at ADA's low, which let me check, seems to be what am I doing here? ADA's low, yeah. We're currently pretty close to it. I mean, it's literally, you know, FTX basically. Actually, technically, we put in our USD low very recently, and we're actually on our Bitcoin pair. You can see very recently we put in our new high. And even at FTX, if we go to FTX, it's not like, you know, with USD where if you put money in at the beginning of the year and maybe you sold after a few months, you'd be up a few quid. Like, yeah, that would be good if you did that, fair play. But if even on its Bitcoin pair, it just shows how these altcoins aren't ready to start putting in their own work yet. Because just from the beginning of this year, there's been no sort of timing. You couldn't have really timed that and done really well. Even if you were a master at timing, you know, if you bought here and sold here or something, like, yeah, okay, cool, you've got whatever, like, you almost doubled your money, almost, maybe. But that's if you're the luckiest man on the planet. Nobody is that, let's be real. And I doubt anybody actually managed to do that. It's just been putting in bigger lows on its Bitcoin pair. So again, it just proves that, you know, Bitcoin is the safest thing to hold during these times. If I just want to try get its low to its current price, or sorry, its highest value to its current price, we can see that's 570. But if we take our current price, which is 105,000, and divide that by our low of 1,500, basically 1,600, we're left with a 6.62. So, you know, missing out on a lot of value here. Again, it just proves the point that, I know I've already said it, but you should have just held it in Bitcoin. If you held it in Bitcoin here, or if you moved your ADA to Bitcoin here, held Bitcoin all the way through this, and then swapped it to ADA now. I'm not saying you should do that if you have currently done that. I don't know, we could put in even more sort of lower values for ADA. I really don't know. But it's definitely possible. I mean, we're currently at where we were just after the previous cycle. 2018 was our recovery year. For 2020, we can see that obviously we dropped down. The next year we went higher up, and then after that, leading into 2021, we started going lower. Bitcoin led us into the run here with December 2020, and then ADA put in some real good values, shot up, moon rocketed, whatever, and then slowly it's just bled literally ever since to Bitcoin. There hasn't been a time where it's ever challenged it. Same with Litecoin, same with ETH, really. It's just not worth having your money in these coins. Bitcoin always outperforms during the long-term bear markets. So yeah, I'm gonna stop parroting myself. I know. It's nice to see. It's nice to see. Well, it's just what it is, to be honest with you. I say it's nice to see, but it just makes sense, to be honest. To me. And of course, nothing is financial advice. You can do whatever you want with your money, and I wish you the best of luck with it, But this is what I have been doing, and sort of what I will continue to do for at least the next month or so. And then I think we can start talking about moving into altcoins. I think USD wise as well. I think we got a bit of pain still for altcoins. You will literally see, we're still at the FTX sort of crash price for a lot of our coins, and a lot of our coins are revisiting. We just saw ADA technically put in its new market cycle low, literally a few weeks ago. I still think we've got pain. Basically. Anyway, looking at Solana now, we can see we had our peak whereabouts in September 2021, and we reached a value of 213 Solana for 1 Bitcoin. Now if we go to September 2021, we can see it was September, right? Let me check. Yeah, okay, interesting actually. Even though we put in our low on Solana for 2021 here, we actually peaked again in November, and now I know they come down to a pretty similar level here, but our BTC Sol pair actually peaked in September compared to the actual peak, which was November. Interesting. Okay, so there we go. That's our sort of first the first time this metric has sort of let us down a little bit. I mean, it's still basically showing that it reached highs, but it wasn't spot on like it has been other times, and I'm not sure why that is. It could just be that Solana, it wasn't a Solana specific event that brought it to its new time high, where this one could have been Solana specific. It shows that the whole crypto space, or at least Bitcoin, went with Solana during this high, which is true. We know BTC put in another high towards the end of the year. Anyway, and then our current price, which is 1,371, is pretty poor, to be honest with you. I mean, if we use our trusty ruler over here at the same price, 560%. It's a similar story with ADA, where we're looking at 570 or whatever it was. I think it was 570. Just struggles basically. And if we take 1300, 1370 and divide it by our low of 200, we'll make it easy and call it 200. Or was it? no, well, 210, and divide it by 210, we still get out around six times. I mean, Solana at 6.8. That's actually the worst so far. So if you'd have put your Solana to Bitcoin here and held your Bitcoin all the way through this time, you'd have 6.8 times the value on your Sol BTC pair compared to what you would have if you held this in Solana all the way up, you know? Your 200 Solana that you got for 1 Bitcoin would be, you know, worth like roughly a sixth of, or almost a seventh of what it is now, you know? It's telling the same story, you know, always. Like, these altcoins don't hold up. And Solana has sort of held, well, it hasn't really held well, to be honest with you, but it's stayed at a similar level for almost a year now. Like, you know, we see, once it put in this low here and once it settled at this price range of 30, it sort of stayed within this 30 to 10 sort of range. It's only very rarely wicked below the 10. You know, only once actually has it wicked below the 10. So it stayed in this 30 to 10 range for over a year, which is pretty good. It's stable enough for crypto, you know, like where you might not see this very often in the financial markets, or you would with very low cap companies and stuff. Crypto, this is pretty good. This is pretty good. If you bought around any time after May, that is. I mean, if you bought, you know, when it was 140, literally in April of 2022, you'd be pretty depressed right now. And, you know, if you bought when it was $260 back in November of, you know, 21, you'd be in a pretty bad place if you were still holding now. So hopefully you didn't. But if you are, I would recommend to just huddle on, buddy. Not financial advice, but, you know, selling now ain't gonna do anything, you know, unless you really need that money. So yeah, and of course, looking in where we put our lows for Solana, September 21. Oh yeah, sorry, we already did this. My bad. Yeah, because we were saying this was incorrect. Yeah. So again, interesting. Another interesting way of looking at this, and obviously Bitcoin wins another battle compared to these alts. And we're now going to have a look at DOT. I like DOT a lot as well, but again, as you can see from this chart, literally since, you know, May of 2021, it's only been bad news on the Bitcoin pair anyway. It's a pretty similar picture on the USD pair, but as you can see, if you put your DOT into Bitcoin here, you'd be doing pretty good. You're looking at like at least a 5x here, 6-ish. If you take your 5,885 DOT and you find the low, which is here in May of 21, and you divide that by 937, you get a pretty rough price of 6.39. Now that is lower than almost all the other coins, which is interesting. Sorry, except for Ether and Litecoin. All the other sort of poorly performing altcoins, DOT seems to have done its best on the Bitcoin pair, you know. And if we take a look at the percentage move, we see that it's 500%, again lower. It's better, you know, but still pretty poor. Not really much to say. If you go, sorry, I'll get my DOT here, DOT USD. If we go to our low of May 21, we see DOT peaks May 21. Oh no, sorry, it peaks in November. My bad. Again, okay. So maybe our BTC DOT method isn't quite working out as well as I thought it would. Anyway, I mean, it still goes down to these sort of levels, but okay, interesting. The actual peak for the BTC pair is actually the first wick up, which, to be fair, a lot of people weren't pricing in. Most people thought it would only go up once, and then we were back out of the crypto space again, out of the bull run again. But no, okay, interesting. I mean, they're pretty close, but yeah, okay. And then, of course, going to today's prices, we're basically at our low. FTX was actually no. Have we technically broken below our low here? I think we might have. Yep, we did just recently break below our low on dots, which again shows here where we sort of wick up, and now we're currently at very poor price performance for dots. Which, you know, same thing over and over. Just losing value as soon as the wick is in. I mean, the peak is in, sorry. And DOT, to be fair, does come back down here again, a bit like Solana, but you're still, you know, you're better off just holding Bitcoin. Now for our final one, I want to have a look at, AVAX. Now this is the coin with the most institutional adoption, funnily enough. So I always think this is a good one to watch and to maybe put a little bit of money in when the time comes, just because I think you're backing the horse the same people BlackRock and all these big financial institutions have, which, to be honest, doesn't really give you much, because, you know, they all backed FTX, and, you know, that went, you know, tits up pretty quickly, which is amazing, and colossally. So, you know, saying that all the big financial companies are backing this doesn't really hold much weight anymore. But anyway, as we can see, AVAX down again on its lows on the USD chart. If we have a look at our Bitcoin chart, again, it was a later peak, but ever since it's peaked, it hasn't come near challenging the same levels compared to Bitcoin, you know, during this cycle. You know, if you find our low here, which is probably going to be November or December, they're basically the same. If you go to 2021, November, December, it was, okay, yeah. November, December, 2021. Yeah, November, peak, December, much lower peak, but of course on these charts, we see that they come about the same. Yeah, but they coincide anyway. And then our current sort of price now is our rough high. And then if we've broken down below our FTX pair, which we have, wow, I didn't actually realize all these alts had dropped below, had hit another cycle low. I mean, I said they were. I'm pretty sure in my early videos I said we'd be coming back down to this sort of pain area. But okay, right, wow. Well, that's another thing I can brag about being right about, eh? But yeah, AVAX doing pretty poor. Again, since 2020, it's only been losing value to BTC. If you put your money in BTC here, you'd be doing a lot better now if you'd held that BTC. Our current AVAX amount that we could buy with a Bitcoin is 2,336, whereas at our lows, we are around 375 or so. If we take this amount, 2,300 or so, and divide it by 385, 375, whatever, we get a rough 6.07, which I think is the lowest of all the other poorly performing altcoins, I think. DOT, we had 6.39. Solana, we had 6.81. ADA, we had 6.62. So AVAX was one of your best poorly performing altcoins to put your money in. Ultimately, on this list that I looked at, Ethereum and Litecoin performed best. So if you bought Litecoin or Ethereum during any time in the last year and a half or so, you weren't doing poorly compared to the rest of the crypto space, but you weren't doing as best as you could have, if you get me. But yeah, that's kind of everything that I wanted to go through with this video. Again, reiterating, repeating myself for the millionth time, hold Bitcoin if you're going to have exposure to the crypto space during bear markets. It's the least volatile coin, and as soon as those peaks are in, you can just see how it loses value to Bitcoin drastically over the year. Like, drastically. 512%, you know, is the value it's lost to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has gone down, you know, it's currently half the price it was at its peak. So, you know, compound that on top of your altcoin losing 6 times its value, or is now worth 1/6 of what it was on its Bitcoin pair. You know, it just shows you how poorly these altcoins perform. And if you held them all the way down from their peak to current price, you're doing really bad, basically. Really bad. But again, if you have, I hope that you find a way out of it, whether that's holding on to them and seeing them put in prices that you're comfortable selling at, or if you're just quitting your, you know, calling your losses, selling now, getting out of the space. I hope you do whatever's best for you. For those of you that haven't bought any cryptos, or maybe have just been holding Bitcoin this time, you know, you've probably done the best. If you're thinking about putting money in the crypto space, again, talk to a financial advisor. It's not what I am. But now would seem to be, you know, a sort of fire sale sort of price to get involved in. You know, again, these altcoins are at their lows of where AVAX is 13 quid, it was 150, you know, at its peak. And that's not even a great example, because if you look at Solana is about 15 quid now, I think, or lower, but at its peak it was 250, 60, 70, 80. So if you manage to sell out or any time, or if we even come close to revisiting those prices, and you're buying now, you know, you're not missing out on much, I don't think. So yeah, anyway, I think I'll wrap up there, guys. Thanks for watching. If you found this video, please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll always reply. Love chatting to people like this. You know, it's crypto is my passion, to be honest with you. I just love looking at these charts, and I love learning about the actual cryptos themselves and how they work. And I love being involved with the communities, and I love talking to you guys. So please, if you feel the same, drop a comment. Tell me what you're holding, or what you have been holding, or what your plan is. If you feel comfortable doing so, I would love to chat with you about it. Of course, you know, just as you would with someone on the street. Anyway, thanks again for watching, guys. Hope you found it useful. Take care, and yeah, peace. Thanks.